everyone, it's Lauren from Speak from the Heart. Thank you so much for tuning in to this newest video. As you can tell by the title, this video will be all about your CFY interview. So many of you probably will be graduating in May, which is super exciting. And so you're probably getting ready to go out on your CFY interviews so you can snag those jobs. So I have some notes written down, so if you see me looking down, that's what I'm referring to. I just didn't want to forget anything. But I'm giving you tips from someone who's recently, and when I say recently, I mean 3 years ago, I went for my first CFY interview. So I want to give you guys some tips to ace those interviews and get your jobs. Just some general things to keep in mind. Make sure you're practicing these questions that I will be giving you. Practice them as if you were practicing for a presentation in school. So you want to make sure that you feel super comfortable with the information that you'll be providing for the interviewer. Really make sure to practice as much as you can for your interview. Another thing is to obviously dress the part. You want to look nice and professional. I always recommend having an interview suit. Every interview you have a nice black, gray, navy blue neutral suit to wear for your interviews, and you look nice and professional. Bring your resume and references. Obviously keep them in a tote. Some jobs will tell you not to bring it, but I actually came across a situation where the computers went down with the company that I was interviewing for, and so they were not able to pull up my resume. So I had a copy and things went smoothly from there. So just make sure you have some, even if they tell you not to, as well as maybe some sample therapy tasks that you've created. So especially if it's laminated, it's something obviously you created and something that you can just kind of sell. You know, I created this therapy task for children with articulation disorders, and this is how I used it. I would recommend bringing some of those too along with your resumes, because it's just a really great selling point. Essentially, you want to sell yourself and let them know how great you are and how you'll be a great fit. So bring some things that you've done with clients. I think that would be really great. And make sure you research the company. We all love to go on Indeed and type in CFY, SLP jobs in our area. But research the company, because you want to make sure it's a great fit for you as well. So just like they're trying to figure out if you're a good fit, you need to make sure the job is a good fit. So look at their mission statement, their vision statement, what types of clients they work with or, you know, provide services to. And you can also include that in your interview as well if their vision and mission aligns with your beliefs. So, and when you're all done with your interview, make sure you send a thank you email. Follow up with whoever you interviewed with, the hiring manager, and thank them for their time, because, you know, their schedules are just as busy as ours. So make sure you do that. That's just a very courteous gesture. So it's okay to be nervous for your first professional interview. Obviously, this will be your first job as a speech-language pathologist, but I promise it's not as bad as you think. You know everything that you need to know. You've done, you know, several on-campus practicums. You've done off-campus practicums. So it's all there in your head. It's just recalling that information and providing it when you go to your interview. So keep that in mind that you got this. Do a couple deep breaths before you go in, and you're gonna do fine. So I want to give you guys some questions that you may be asked during your interview. Some of these will be kind of population specific. Some of them I think are a little bit more general, but you'll have them so that way maybe you can start preparing and practicing. So probably one of the most popular questions that interviewers will ask is, tell me some of your strengths and weaknesses. And obviously that can be worded several different ways, but I always stick to 2 strengths and 2 weaknesses. And don't throw yourself under the bus. I know you want to be humble. So I would say choose 2 weaknesses that you can say that you've been actively trying to improve upon. Again, don't throw yourself under the bus, but choose what I would say is a positive weakness. So I know I've seen this example a lot on Google is, you know, I'm a perfectionist. I critique myself too hard, but I'm learning that as long as I give my best, as long as I give my best to my clients, that's all that matters, or something like that. I wouldn't maybe choose that specific weakness, but practice it to really put that positive spin on your weakness. So this is my weakness. However, I'm trying to overcome it by X, Y, and Z. The same thing with your strengths. Don't sound too cocky. Keep it humble, but maybe choose some strengths that are a personal strength as well as a clinical strength, so you can kind of go both ways with it. So, for example, a strength of mine is my ability to collaborate with different people from different walks of life. That has translated into my clinical skills because I'm able to collaborate with therapists from different disciplines to maximize client success, something like that. So you can kind of say it from your personal life and for your clinical life. So 2 strengths, 2 weaknesses. Another really popular question is, tell me about your clinical experiences, or what experiences do you have with speech and language disorders? My number 1 tip would be, so do not list these. Do not say, I have experience with articulation disorders, aphasia, fluency, dysarthria, and apraxia. Yep, those are my experiences. No, do not do that. Expand, okay? It's okay to talk about yourself. It's, I think sometimes it's people being a little too humble. You don't want to sell yourself short. You do need to expand and tell them all the great things that you've done during your clinical practicums, and maybe even a side job that you had in graduate school that's related. So, for example, when I went on my CFY interview, I answered, this is not how I answered, I'm just making up something off the top of my head. So I have experience working with the transgender voice and communication group. During my time, I was able to work on female nonverbal and verbal characteristics to help those who identify as transgender to become more comfortable with themselves, something like that. So you see how I expanded on that experience, and I wasn't just saying I did transgender voice and communication therapy. I did articulation disorders. So work on that. That's something you can practice, is going through your clinical experiences, but making sure that you're summarizing it and giving enough information so it's not too vague. So, those 2 I would say are probably the most popular. Another one would be like, what evaluation measures are you familiar with? So this one's, again, don't list it. Again, expanding, don't just list. I've done the Goldman-Bristow, I've done the Western Aphasia Battery, and the Cognitive Linguistic Quick Test. Making sure you're practicing these will probably come up. And then along with these popular questions, you may have population specific questions. So for example, with my current job, I was asked, walk me through a clinical swallow examination. Walk me through an oral motor examination. So these kind of questions can sometimes catch you off guard, but like I said, you know this. You've been to school for 6 years. You've done placements and practicums. You know this. So I would say, these types of questions are harder to prepare for because it depends on the population you'll be working with and the company. But I would say, if you're applying for a job to work with pediatrics, maybe brushing up on the pediatric standardized assessments, maybe some common treatment approaches for like articulation, language. For adults, if you're applying for maybe a hospital, acute care, skilled nursing facility, maybe brushing up on a clinical swallow exam. What would you do if you notice signs and symptoms of aspiration during a clinical swallow exam? What are you looking for in an oral motor exam? So really go over those things that are specific to a particular population and be prepared to maybe answer some questions for those. Those are just a couple questions. The other really important part of an interview, of a CF interview, is finding out if this company is going to be the best fit for you. So just as the interviewer is making sure you're a great fit, you need to make sure that this company is a great fit. Typically, hopefully everything goes well, you'll be here for 9 months, completing your CFY. So I've compiled a list of just a few questions that you could ask the interviewer to make sure that this is a great fit for you. Please make sure that you ask questions. It shows interest. And I feel like if you don't ask questions, it's just kind of like, well, I'm just here because I need a job. I mean, yeah, you need a job, but you need to make sure that you're interested and vocal in what you want and the questions that you want to be answered. So I'll just briefly go over these. One question that you could ask would be, what supplies will be available to me? Will I have to provide my own therapy supplies? Are there therapy supplies provided by the company? And if I do have to purchase my own supplies, will I be reimbursed? So obviously I wouldn't ask it all like that, but maybe just one at a time. But that's really important, because if you have to go out and buy your own supplies, you might want to be reimbursed, right? So that's a really good one to ask. Along with that question is asking what evaluation and assessment materials will be available. So some places you go will not have standardized assessments. They may have something that's compiled of different standardized assessments, so a subtest from the WAB, a subtest from the BDAE, but just making sure that you have some type of material to get your evaluations and assessments done. Another great question is asking if there would be time dedicated for paperwork. Not everywhere will have that. We don't have a specific time for paperwork at my current job. I just kind of do it if I have time after the session or during the session or after, I've seen my patients. But that could be something that you're interested in finding out. Another one is, what can I expect an average day to look like as a speech language pathologist with this company? Or, what's the caseload per day? How many clients do the therapist typically see in a day? Just to give you a variety of ways to ask that question, because it's important. Some people don't want to see 15 patients in a day, and some people don't want to see only 5, especially depending on the company you're applying for. For home health, obviously you wouldn't be seeing as many patients as someone who's in inpatient rehab or outpatient pediatric practice, a pediatric private practice. So finding out, because that'll let you know if it's a good fit for you. Length of therapy session, so what's the average length of a therapy session with a client with this company? Again, that's population specific, company specific. So children typically have been 30 minutes in my experience. With adults, it's typically 45 minutes, an hour for my LSVT patients. But that again gives you some more information about what your time frame would be for targeting your goals with your patients. And then, this is my favorite question, and I would recommend saving this one for last. So what would be the biggest benefit for me working with your company? And obviously there are different ways that you could word this, but tell me why I should work for you in a sense. Why should I pick you over company A and company B? And really, really listen to what they say. Listen to, how they explain their company, and take that into consideration as you are picking through your numerous job offers when you're finished with your interview. But I would say that's one of my favorite questions, because I want to make sure that your company aligns with what I want with my career. You spend the majority of your time, at work. So making sure that that is the last question you ask, and making sure that you ask it. So again, very general, some things that you can expect. Make sure you take your time too. So you may get a question where you're like, oh goodness, I did not practice this one, I don't know. And I would always say, take your time. So I would, well, that's a very interesting question. Blah, 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 blah. That's a very interesting question. Gives you some time to think about what you're going to say, or that's a very thoughtful or insightful question. Blah, 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 blah. So it gives you some time to, think about what your answer will be, but it's okay if you don't have a response right off the bat to every question. I've had questions like that, but thinking of ways to buy yourself some time as you formulate that response in your mind. I hope this was super helpful. I am wishing all of you good luck. If you guys want any more information or have any specific questions, please feel free to reach out to me. If you need anything, subscribe, thumbs up this video, and I will see you guys in my next one.